Well, I'll tell you this. I didn't like Triple H for 15 years because of the curtain call. I thought he was a piece of shit for exposing the business along with his butt buddies. He was the junior member at the time. Michaels and Nash were the ringleaders, and Ramon Hall. But by the same token, now Triple H, remember what I said, the enemy of my enemy is my friend? Triple H is now responsible for NXT, which is the most pro wrestling promotion on a big budget level in the world today. So, people can change and things change. And, I would be a stubborn prick, which of course I am, but I'd be a stubborn prick if I didn't say, well, he may have done some bullshit before, but now, guys like the Revival wouldn't have a chance if it wasn't for the Revival's the best tag team in wrestling. I love the Briscoes and Ring of Honor. And I was a huge fan of Chris Hero and Claudio Castagnoli when they were the kings of wrestling. I thought they were the modern-day version of the Midnight Express. But right now, the Revival is the best tag team in wrestling, and NXT has the best pro wrestling presentation of big-budget wrestling, Ring of Honor being a close second, in the business. So, this is why I'm like, goddamn. When I walked in the TV hotel in Orlando, at first I saw Ric Flair, I saw Sting, I saw the Rock and Roll Express. I'm like, my God, this is a Crockett pay-per-view. In the same weekend, Jim Ross, Kurt Angle, and Jim Cornette returned to WWE television. This is like the bizarro world. I don't know what to think anymore.
And even second that, saying it's like a Crockett pay-per-view, how about you take a look around the locker room, or you take a look around your Monday nights or Tuesday nights, you see Samoa Joe, Bobby Roode, Claudio, Chris Hero's in NXT, Austin Aries, Eric Young, all these guys that cut their teeth, including guys that you might not be a huge fan of, cutting their teeth for years and years. Now, they're in the WWE, and that's almost like Bizarre World. But do you feel like, and that kind of feels like, has Triple H has Jim Cornette kind of turned his other cheek to Triple H at this point?
Well, and you mentioned Samoa Joe and Bobby Roode. I've been a huge fan of Bobby Roode since I started with TNA in 2006. I think he is the modern-day equivalent of Arn Anderson. Tremendous worker, always in the right place at the right time, makes himself and his opponents look great. I think Samoa Joe is one of the next big stars. I think next year's WrestleMania main event should be Brock Lesnar and Samoa Joe. I've been waiting for Joe to break away from, he was the victim of, shit-stains booking for so long that I thought that this another guy like a Matt Morgan that's never going to get the chance that he deserves because of his talent, because of he just had a complete blithering idiot in charge of the company he was working for. But now all of a sudden he's got that opportunity, and so if Triple H is the guy you got to thank for that, well, I guess we got to thank him for it. But that's the thing. These guys have been waiting for an opportunity for so long. I threw my body in front of Tyler Black, Seth Rollins signing a TNA contract when he was leaving Ring of Honor. He called me one day, and he said, well, they've offered me this in TNA, and WWE won't call me back. I said, just fucking ask these questions and delay this thing and see if you can get a call back from the other people, because you don't want to be stuck in TNA because the guy in charge of it doesn't get people over, he gets people under. And fortunately, that came to pass. So all those guys now that had the talent, AJ Styles, for God's sake, I just wish it had been 5 years beforehand. His body would probably feel a lot better. But these guys that were carrying the ball in TNA, and because of Dixie Carter being so stupid, if it was raining soup, she'd be out in the yard with a fork. She was paying all these goddamn ex-WWF fucking stars that were just taking her money and bleeding her dry for a paid vacation. She was paying them twice as much money as the people that were actually carrying the ball and working hard and making the matches. And now those guys are finally getting their opportunity. And it was delayed, but at least it finally came. So, I'm happy for that.
So then let's just play a quick hypothetical. So if this was 10 years ago, and you were still kind of, you weren't fully out of the business at that point, but you weren't, you were getting, I guess you're on your way to Ring of Honor, still kind of with TNA, but if this was WWE 10 years ago, and knowing what you had to go through in WWE and all the BS and all the dumb stuff you had to deal with, would you have made a return or at least tried to work with these guys on the main roster if this is what the WWE looked like 10 years ago?
No, I would have gone to NXT. I still wouldn't want to be on the main roster, and I'm definitely not going overseas except for an obscene amount of money, which I've been paid a couple of times here recently to go to England. Love the folks in the UK. They don't have any ice over there, but I love them. But I would have been interested in NXT because that's why I was interested in OVW. That's why I was interested in Ring of Honor. I wanted to impart some wisdom and hopefully also preserve and perpetuate professional wrestling instead of sports entertainment. I've always, over the last 15 years, been more interested in the new talent and training guys to get over for the new generation than I have about, wringing everything I can out of the previous generation. So I would have definitely been interested in working with NXT because, myself, Jim Ross, and Danny Davis invented the developmental program in the first place.